but I can lay my head on the chest of Jesus. I can open his word. I can read about him. I can listen for his voice. I can talk to him. I can go into the throne room of heaven as an adopted son of or daughter of God and talk with the creator of the universe about how I'm feeling. And he's going to look at you and say, I want you to trust me. And
Yeah.
I'm Hey guys, welcome back to the Kingdom Vision podcast. This is a milestone day. We have all three of us in one spot. Well, we're not in one spot. We're in one recording, which has been hard to do lately. But I just wanted to kind of touch base with everybody before we jump in. Tim, I'll start with you. We've seen you the least. How you been?
Well, I've just been doing whatever I feel like the Lord's putting in front of me and doing what I can to catch up to it. I don't seem to measure up too well some days.
How have things been going on your mission trips?
Well, I guess we're getting ready to go on some. I didn't know how much of that you wanted to put out here, but
Well, that's up to you.
Well, there's nothing secret about them. Just there's always a plethora of details to put together and little time to do it. So that's what we're in the middle of, is just getting ready for one probably coming up in October-ish, and working with my brain just shut off, Cross Brand.
Yep.
To start putting that together for them.
Cool. Bruce, how's things going over at Baxter?
Awesome, man. Lord is doing crazy stuff, and we're just trying to keep up.
That's what it seems like. The longer that we all do this, that's the recurring theme, is just trying to move where the Lord's moving. Before we jump into week 12, this is our episode 12. Our primary text this week was Deuteronomy 32, kind of shaping our worldview about what's really going on in the world around us. Lots of people are familiar with this story of Babel that we talked about last week, where because we thought we were some kind of big shots as human beings, we could build this tower up to God, and he dispersed the nations. And this week we see this week and last week, we see where he placed these, we would call them angels, these angelic beings in charge of the nations, and they didn't do so well. And he comes in this week and he talks about it was more, there's more going on in this world than just geopolitical business. There's more going on in the world than what meets the eye, as it were. And this week we see God has come in. He's levied judgment against these spiritual rulers for doing a bad job. It says, you were gods, little g, and now you'll die like men. And it kind of starts setting the stage for a lot of the chaos and the conflict that even we're seeing now. Is just a frame of what's really going on out there. But the second thing I wanted to kind of talk about today was that that's true, and it's more than just everybody scattered physically, but that the spiritual realm was fractured. There's all kinds of stuff is fractured, but that God's not giving up on his plan to come and redeem his people. He's bringing the king back. And I want to see, well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to watch my clock, and so that we don't run over. But what I wanted to do was just kind of take this idea that we're not alone. And I don't mean that we're not alone, like alien, we're not alone, but like that there's this spiritual realm out there that's also in conflict. We're going to talk about it next week in week 13 in a little bit more granular deal. But guys, when you think about the fact that not just humanity's broken, but that the spiritual realm is fractured as well, I mean, how do you see that playing out in your walk every day as you lead your mission trips, Tim, or Bruce, as you're leading your church. I mean, how do you coach people, and how do you work that into their daily life to help kind of explain what's going on in the world around them? Bruce, you take off first.
Yeah, that's really it. Is as we were looking at your notes earlier, is as we've gotten older, I feel like we owe it to those around us to teach and to share and to model waiting on the Lord before we move. I've always been one of those guys who just says, "Okay, I think we're supposed to do this. Let's go." And that may not be what's supposed to happen in the spiritual realm, right? So if I wait and I allow those things in the spiritual realm to take place, then it's just going to have a much better outcome. It's, like with the whole David and Saul, as we're reading through Psalms, right?
Right.
Is there's things that David could have done all along the way, but he didn't. He allowed God to take care of it, and that's allowing the spiritual to guide the physical.
Tim, you've been doing this a long time. Like, you're like the old guy amongst the group. When Bruce is talking about, yeah, Bruce is talking about, waiting on the Lord and letting the spiritual side of things go. I mean, how do you know what the Lord's saying to you, Tim? How do you know when the Lord's leading you out to do something? Because one of the things that I get from some of our young guns at church and some people that I talk to is, how do I know when and if the Lord's actually talking to me? I'll put that out for both of you as well. But Tim, what are your thoughts on that?
I would tell you, I'm still learning what that is.
Man.
Well, I know that sounds confusing. I've done a lot of things for ministry and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that I'm the measure of all the things ministry does by any stretch, but the more I try to put myself out there, the more I start finding that maybe God is okay with that, and sometimes he's not good with that. And I don't mean like in a condemning sort of way.
Yeah.
But as I look at Jacob, if you can watch that guy in his contention with God, I mean, his family looked like a huge mess. But yet God kept him. I'll use that word. But if we were in God's place looking at Jacob and watching him and his family and how he did things, we'd be like, that is no model to follow on any level whatsoever. And we almost feel like that whatever we do has got to be perfect in some function. So I think that my point in that, in kind of bringing that picture together, is we don't know God and his movements and those things. We can recognize some of that. We can intellectually see those things or hear them and think we know how they move. And to a large extent, I'm not even real sure he expects us to recognize everything that he moves and does, because on one hand, he's training us a way to, I guess I could say it.
Right.
And on another hand, he doesn't expect us to grasp that right now. He's looking way down the road, and we're having a hard enough time just trying to catch up with it.
Right.
But in the end, do you want to pursue him no matter how off-footed you may feel? We want to be sure-footed. I don't know that we can be as things are separated right now. And I pull that up by looking at things that happened to John reading through Revelation and watching David pursue. I mean, both of those mindsets were just kind of like, don't really know what's happening here, so I'm going to do what I think I know is right. My heart's perfect, so the Lord's going to steer me one way or another, and it'll come to fruition when it does. That's a hard road to live on sometimes.
Bruce, how do you seek confirmation and knowing that you're waited long enough, you've not waited enough, the Lord's leading you to do something? What are some things that you look for as clues?
I try to be as perceptive as I can to his movement through my prayer time, my quiet time, my study time. And I can't be, I can't emphasize enough to make sure that you have a study time is great. Everybody should be studying the word, but I can't emphasize enough how important just a daily reading schedule is, because so often I'll feel like in my prayer time and my quiet time that the Lord's leading me somewhere. And if I go seeking it out, I can kind of make it come together, in my head and go, oh, yeah, I got an answer. But if I'm just daily in his word, just kind of strolling through the garden of his word, then it more often than not, I can feel way more secure about decisions, because I feel like he's nudged me in my quiet time. I've asked for help in my prayer time, and then when I got to the word time, he kind of made the tumbler click just a little bit for me. And if I stay in that zone and I just wait and listen through that, I just feel way more secure in all of my steps. Like Tim said, sure-footed. That's how I feel, sure-footed in where I'm going next.
It's we've talked about it on the podcast before, but way back in the day, we went through experiencing God. What was his name that did that, Tim?
If you hadn't have said it, I could have told you his name. Henry Blackaby.
Well, he's been coming across my Facebook feed, and I probably because we talked about him and the ever-present ears heard it. But one of the things that he says is that people are convinced today, a lot of people are, that God no longer speaks to his people.
Come on.
And we have 66 books of him speaking to us, number one, but in experiencing God teaches that he speaks through the Spirit, through circumstances, through his word, through people, that he speaks through nature in a lot of different ways. And a lot of it's just getting in tune with and being aware of that there's more to reality than what we can see. And for me, this week's even readings and even talking about and highlighting, the fact that there is spiritual reality out there. Next week, we talk about the opposition that it has against the kingdom and how to deal with it a little bit. But just being aware that there's more going on in the world, and that including the spirit. I know this week in we're doing a foundations cohort at church right now. I think we're in week 4, and it's the week on prayer, and where we really start to introduce and talk about knowing God through prayer. And one of the assignments on like Wednesday or today or tomorrow is to go out and to have a time of prayer, but you're not allowed in the exercise to ask for anything, to pray for anybody. It's an exercise in listening. And we always get these various responses, so people like, it was the most boring time of my week, or, whatever. And then the encouragement is to keep doing it. And
Right.
Almost without fail, people come back and will say something like, well, I didn't hear a voice from God, but I sure did feel peaceful. Or,
Yeah.
Come on.
And because we have this idea, once we start looking at the fact that there is a spiritual reality out there, we now are expecting the sensational. That's like one of the ditches we fall into. It's like, oh, we're either going to become demon hunters or demon food, and fodder. And it's like, well, not necessarily. Either way, it's just is. It's not that it's not sensational. I guess that's the word I keep coming back
Right.
to. And neither
Right.
a lot of times is the way that God speaks. Sometimes it's just confirmation of knowing that you know something.
Yeah. One of the scriptures that we're coming out of this week is John 17. And I love this, as it's this prayer of Jesus talking to the Father, then talking to the Father about his disciples, and then talking to the Father about us. But I love this. I just glanced down and I have this highlighted in talking to the Father about the disciples, he says this phrase a few times. I have given them the word you gave me. I have given them your word. Sanctify them by the truth. Your word is truth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And that unplugging, I don't want to get into, but unplugging from everything else that we know and we're being told and we're being funneled to us, unplugging with quiet time, with just him and just the word. The word is where this relationship, this back and forth conversation and these confirmations and these leadings come from. It's like you said a while ago, he talks to us all the time. It's just us getting in a posture of listening and being ready to receive what we hear.
Well, in receiving what you hear, we're simplistic. All of us are. And so, we're looking for and I think this plays out in the scope of what we're talking about today. We're looking for the answer and we think that we're going to understand it. And even God says, I'm so vast, you wouldn't just explode, you would atomize and couldn't even exist anymore if you tried to take the depth of what I am and what I can be. And he's like, you don't have to have all that, but we got to have the answer.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's wrong to pursue that, but I think it's very interesting to watch other people. So like uh, the Apostle John, when he's doing revelation or going through that himself and he's writing down what he sees. I mean, that guy, if you look at it comparatively, he'd lived a long life. He's the only one that probably didn't get
martyred.
In the book of Revelation, he was quite a bit older than what all the rest of them been killed off and all that. And he'd certainly been through his own stuff. And everybody goes, ooh, over Revelation. You got to have some special power to read it or see it. And I don't think it reads that way. I think that he was trying to do the best he could and describing what he could with what he saw. And that guy, if that's what he was going through right then, none of the rest of us would be able to grab a hold of that either. I mean, comparatively, that guy knew more about the kingdom than all of us put together right now could at that time.
Right. I think part of the thing that, I had several conversations this weekend. I think part of what you're trying to get to there, Tim, is at an advanced place of maturity that John was, he still struggled with understanding and articulating and synthesizing what it was that God was showing him.
And you see that all through scriptural history.
Yes.
But we think that we've got to get to this place where we're going to grasp it all and do it all and be all that. And even through John's journey in Revelation, if he was in heaven or wherever it was he was going through that, at the end of that thing, he still came out of it going, I don't know if I have a clue or not.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's kind of normal. Pursuing the kingdom, you can be at peace but not have the answer.
When I cover with our young adults at church about once a month, I cover their small group and 20 somethings, and I like to use a lot of examples because of what I'm seeing in their group. And one of the things that I've talked with them about on several occasions is and the format of the group is they submit questions that they have about God, Christianity, their life in general, and we talk about them from a scriptural standpoint, just a real free flow kind of discussion. And one of the observations I've made with them, and we talked about this last Sunday, matter of fact, is that you can tell where some of the maturity levels are growing because the questions in the beginning start with, can I do this or not? Is this right or is this wrong? And then the questions start, as someone matures, you get into more like, well, what is it that God says about? What does God's heart feel about this thing? And that becomes the focus way more than, am I going to blow this? Am I stepping on a landmine here? Which, I'm not saying those aren't important questions, but they're just different, because one of the things I talked about Sunday with them was there's this movement in Christian, especially Christian conservatism right now. And I don't mean political conservative. I mean, it's like mainline evangelical orthodoxy. And it's been that way for a long time. I grew up in it. You guys have been around it, that if you'll just do XYZ, then you'll get ABC. And every time, if you do it, and there's this compulsion. Well, what I love about some of the passages of scripture that we're coming out of is because that compulsion to feel like we can control and get all the answers is born really out of controlling just the things that we can see and interacting with the things that we can see, feel, taste, touch, and experience. But these passages remind us that there's a whole other world out there that we can't see and readily interact with. And that involves God and the spirit and these other, they're the angelic and call them demonic forces, whatever. There's no place for fear in that. There's no, we're not like shaking or anything like that, but it's just realizing that even when we think we've got everything under control, there's this whole other realm out there that we haven't even touched yet. So how could we possibly, have all the answers? This is what you got to do. And it blows my mind just how dogmatic we can get about the answers that we think that we found. Bruce, you were talking about unplugging. You're going through something right now that I experienced myself back late 90s, earliest 2000s, and that was I was unplugged from everybody I knew because we moved, took that church. I didn't have any books. I didn't have any resources. All I had was the scriptures and a concordance. Oh, and I had a Matthew Henry's commentary, but that sucker's hard to read. And, it's 4 inches thick and all of that kind of stuff. But spending time with just God and his word really began to make me question some of that stuff that had been fed to me.
Amen.
And some of it I came back to and I'm like, oh, they were right, but they weren't right because of who they were. They're right because it was scripture.
Right.
And I think that's a big part of it, is realizing that even when we have the answers, like Tim's talking about, there's still so many layers beyond whatever answer we have. That's where he calls us into trust. And I think that's one of the things you were talking about with the trust thing.
To what Tim was saying, it's all, we get to a point and I don't want to say appreciate or enjoy, but we get to a point where we understand that we're not supposed to understand.
Yeah.
We're supposed to trust and seek and follow. We won't always have all the answers. And I've told you guys 100 times, the biggest red flag that I think you can ever run across is somebody who has all the answers.
Yeah. Oh, man. We could probably spend an entire podcast talking about experience we've had with people who had all the answers and then their world blew up.
Right.
Well, I could tell you the time that I thought I had all the answers and mine blew up later. So, I've certainly been in that crowd once or twice in my days.
Well, when I was early in the ministry, the people I was around, the pastors I was around, the respected people that or the people I was even told I was supposed to respect, whether I actually knew them or not, they would tell you they had all the answers. And the training and there was explicit training that I received, and admonition from some of them was never let the people see you sweat. You don't ever want to say you don't know. You got to act like you know. And here's what you do. Here's your thing. And I watched their worlds blow up. In various ways. And actually, that was actually a good thing to see that happen, because it made me lose confidence in the constructs of men.
That's good. Absolutely. So that's what the text we're coming from, this whole Babel situation. It's exactly that, right?
Right.
It's with their striving, with their confidence, with their understanding. They knew what they could do and how awesome they were, right? And God had to come in and say, no.
Well, and what's an interesting point in that is, after that, when they got dispersed, these beings that had been in the throne room area of heaven. I mean, these were like angelic beings that were brought in to lead these nations, as it were. They had knowledge that we could not even fathom, undoubtedly. And even they screwed it up.
Right.
You know, he said, I told you to be just and to take care of the poor and the needy and all these kind of things, and you didn't do that. You gave preference to the wicked, and you started making these deals with, you know, the people, and you led them astray, and now they're under judgment as well. You know, I mean, there's more to the rebellion that's going on in this world than just what happened in the garden, than just what happened after the flood. There's multiple layers of it. And even these beings who have no excuse not to understand still screwed it up. You know, how much more in our finiteness are we gonna do that from time to time?
Right. That's a good place to start landing the plane, man. That's it's we're not really supposed to it's not about understanding always, it's about trust always.
Exactly. And yeah, and you know, if we, like you said, to land the plane, I always think about, what do I want people to take away from a podcast? What I want people to take away from the week's reading, and that's just it. Is the problem that Eve had was she didn't completely believe and trust what God had told her.
Right.
You know, the problem that the people had before Noah is they wanted to do their own thing. They didn't completely trust. They made fun of Noah as he trusted, you know, and built an ark when it had never rained before. Then after the fact, you know, we get to Babel. They didn't trust the Lord. They trusted themselves, and it's self-exaltation instead of trusting God. And to me, that's extremely poignant for right now. I mean, the world's in pretty bad shape at this point, you know, probably in some ways worse than some of us have seen in our lifetimes. I mean, in some of the unknowns, there's just a lot going on, and there's a lot going on in a lot of places. And it's been that way before, to be sure. But for some of us, this is the closest it feels like sometimes we've been to some of it. And it's easy to fall back and be like, oh, you know, what are we going to do? We got to stop this, or we got to make sure this doesn't happen, or this does happen. And I just feel like God's just calling out to us, going, what you need to do is trust me. What you need to do.
Well, learning what trust is a whole different conversation for a lot of people. And even for me, I mean, as I look back, you're right. It is learning to trust him, but we want to trust him with the answers in our mind. And that's not really how it works. He couldn't give you all the answers if he wanted to. And I don't know, to look at it like some science fiction film, if he actually gave you all the answers, you would explode. Well, so I don't know if that's really true or not, but I mean, it feels that way.
Yeah.
Getting in the presence of the Lord, sometimes I'm going, stop, I can't take anymore. I mean that in a good sense, but yeah, the just wanting to be in his place and his patience. And you can look at people all through scriptural history, and all of them, all the time, up until the last second, even John getting pulled up into heaven, he didn't know what to do with a whole lot of that or how to explain it. And if anybody on the planet could have been able to explain the things of the kingdom, it would have been him and all the things he had been through. And so he just took it for what it was, explained it the best he could. And then, you know, when God came and took John up into heaven, he was already in a bad place from a human point of view, excoriated, put out to the side all by himself. And it's almost like he went, saw all these great things, and God put him right back down there, and he was okay with that. But that was a learned thing from him, right? He didn't understand it, but he was okay with not understanding it.
But he knew how to trust.
That is a mature function.
Yeah.
He was okay with not understanding it. Come on now. He was okay with not understanding it because he had been at the table with Jesus.
Yep.
And he had laid his head on his breast. Yep. And was close to Jesus. He knew without a doubt, this is where I can rest and abide. So all this other stuff, boiling me in oil. I don't care.
Yeah.
I've been at the table. I've had my head on Jesus's chest.
Yes, exactly.
And
And that's a great place to stop, because
yeah,
my encouragement to people watching this is your life will at times spin out of control. You're not going to know what in the heck is going on. You're not going to have the answer. You're not going to understand. Your church is going to be in the same spot. It's going to be coming apart at the seams. It seems like, you name it, it's going to happen in some form or fashion. But you can always come back to the place that says, but I can lay my head on the chest of Jesus. I can open his word. I can read about him. I can listen for his voice. I can talk to him. I can go into the throne room of heaven as an adopted son of or daughter of God and talk with the creator of the universe about how I'm feeling. And he's going to look at you and say, I want you to trust me. And
yeah,
I mean, and I guess if nothing else comes out of it, just trust him. Get off the news and trust Jesus, because you're not going to figure it all out. Just trust the Lord. We appreciate you coming to see us today and recording with us today, or watching with us today. Please do prayerfully consider supporting the ministry. We'll put a website up there. You can go to the app. The app is continuing to gain traction. I think we're up to 819 now users, which is incredible. And not in the internet world, that's a drop in the bucket, but for us, that's a big deal. And we got a lot of people engaged in these devotions, which has been really cool. Check out the app. There's lots of materials on there. I've got 2 new courses coming out here shortly. One on standing steadfast as a caregiver and when pressures just don't let up, and another one about sacred spaces, that kind of the stuff we're talking about. So be looking for those. They'll be in the app. It's always free, and we look forward. Anybody got any parting comments before we go? No, they're good to go. We love you guys. Yeah, we love you. Appreciate it. Trust Jesus, and we'll see you next time. Talk to y'all later.